So good morning, or in many instances, good afternoon. My name is Aaron Russell. I'm a PhD student from the University of Delaware in the United States. Today I'm going to be discussing results of survey data analysis, considering localized perceptions to the Block Island Offshore Wind Project, which is a 30 megawatt project in New England off the coast of Rhode Island, and the United States' only operational offshore wind installation. The U.S. East Coast represents a major renewable energy resource due to several factors, including the strength of the resource, population density, land availability, and an aging current infrastructure. Block Island can be found on this map. It's up in the north. It's actually point number 7. I would use my my mouse to show you, but I don't think that works in this setting. It's just east of Long Island, New York. In fact, there are over 25 gigawatts of projects that are in the planning stages, ranging from the Carolinas in the south all the way up to Massachusetts in the north. And it's still a promising location for offshore wind. And we hope that more of these projects will start to enter the actual development pipeline more than just the leasing stages that they're in now. And here you can see a few beauty shots of the areas that are local to the Block Island Offshore Wind Project. On the left, you can see the 5 turbines. They're approximately 5 kilometers distant to Block Island. They're to the south. Block Island's iconic island landscape can be seen in the upper right photo. And on the lower right, Point Judith is the closest point on the mainland at 26 kilometers distance. Rhode Island coastal communities near the project are a mix of permanent and seasonal housing with a varied coastline featuring state and local beaches, salt ponds, and some low-lying commercial development. And here you can actually see the size of the turbines up close. These are 180 meter tall, 6 megawatt turbines. The turbines are connected to the Rhode Island coast as well as the island as of May 2017, and you can see there on the map that's represented by the transmission cables, I should say, are represented by the orange, the yellow line. The island has been able to replace reliance on diesel generation because of its connection to the mainland grid. So that's quite a big benefit for the island population. You can also see we've divided using the kind of turquoise blue and orange colors the populations for our survey work. Basically the 2 strata, the island strata and the coastal strata. The survey project has been a cooperative adventure between the University of Delaware and the University of Rhode Island. There have been 3 survey iterations. The first commenced following foundation construction, the second immediately after the turbines became operational, and the third was completed in 2018 after the turbines had been operational for approximately 1 year. This presentation will focus on data collected during the 3rd survey. So the research scope. This work follows Firestone et al. 2018, which reported results from the first 2 surveys. I will discuss some new concepts covered with the 3rd survey and provide a broad snapshot of community perceptions a year after operations commenced. The presentation that follows mine will actually pivot to a more longitudinal look at the same data, focusing on change between the 1st and the 3rd surveys. And here I provide a few details regarding our use of the data from the 3rd survey. In the interest of consistency, we checked the demographic information of respondents against prior surveys to make sure that we were talking to the same people. Pardon me. 2 databases were created. We utilized the larger of the 2, which includes those who responded to the 1st and to the 3rd survey. So our N is 420. The focal points of the 3rd survey have been project support, opposition, perceptions of landscape effects, and characteristics of the project. Respondent attributes and demographics were also sampled. A primary point of interest in Survey 3 involved the concepts of place meaning and consistency of respondents' place meanings with the project. Place meanings are cognitions and or evaluative beliefs concerning a setting that reflect the value and significance of that setting, and we get that definition from Winveen et al. In 2012. Our ideas for place consistency were also informed by established literature on constructs of place, specifically work from Divine Right and Howes, dealing with the idea of being in or out of place. And this whole idea is something analogous to the really old kind of idea from Leo Marx in 1964 of the machine in the garden, and how industrialization of, or the perception of industrialization in natural places is something that we are interested in. The research questions for this work focus on place meaning and consistency. The methods here, the research questions. So which place meanings are associated with the ocean and coast specifically, and does place consistency further explain project support and opposition? For our methods, we analyze descriptive statistics comparing Block Island and coastal Rhode Island. We use t-tests and chi-square tests to determine if there are significant differences between the two populations. And then we carry out regression analysis. We use ordinary least squares for models predicting place consistency, and we use logits for models predicting support or opposition. The models were selected using correlation analysis to remove any items, any variables that had multicollinear effects, and we used process of k-means clustering, also called lasso, in order to choose the variables that go into our models. As far as the place meanings that we chose, we used work from Kolzicki 2014 for inspiration, specifically developing meanings for social, physical, site, and experiential dimensions. In addition, we included meanings describing both traditional and sustainable economic uses of the ocean and the coast. And here I'll provide those specific meanings that we provided to the respondents. So essentially, we asked respondents to choose their top 3 place meanings, and then in a separate series of questions to indicate whether or not their top 3 place meanings chosen were consistent, inconsistent, or neither inconsistent or consistent with the Block Island offshore wind project. And here are the results from those questions. So as you can see, the top place meanings chosen, and I guess I can provide a little information for the actual graphs here. So Block Island is located in the top graph, and the Rhode Island coastal community is located in the bottom graph. And the sort of light green bars are people who chose neither. The orange bars are people who chose consistent, and the red bars are those who said that the place meaning was inconsistent with the project. And the vertical green bars represent the ratio of inconsistent to consistent. So a larger value for the green bars says that there was more disagreement in the population about whether or not the project was consistent or inconsistent. And so for Block Island, aesthetic beauty, family and community identity, and then ecology, solitude, and pristineness were the top chosen meanings. On the Rhode Island coast, aesthetic beauty, recreation, and family and community identity were the top meanings. And the 2 meanings that had the highest ratios of inconsistent to consistent were aesthetic beauty and pristineness. So those were the 2 meanings, again, that had the most disagreement. And we can say that that may be related to ideas of industrialization of a natural place, industrialization of the ocean as a special environment. And so we move on to data we collected about seeing and supporting. So at the time of the 3rd survey, all Block Island respondents had seen the turbines, and over half of Rhode Island residents had, which is interesting because that means that there are a lot of people who responded to the survey that had not seen the turbines with their own eyes, that were still making judgments about it, which is something that is going to happen given the distance offshore wind often has from the communities that it may impact. Mean support is high for both populations. However, Block Island respondents appear to be more sure of their support. So as you can see here, they have similar means, but the support on Block Island that is for sure support was 83% compared to 69% on the coast. And those who said they were leaning was only 3% on Block Island, and was closer to 20% on the coast. So that just kind of shows that the support was more crystallized, or at least it appears to be more crystallized on Block Island. We also asked questions regarding fit with the landscape or seascape. We found that a higher proportion of islanders agree that the project fits with the landscape or seascape than they do on the coast. And we did some tests for significance to see whether or not we actually had something here. and we found that there were statistically significant differences between day and night on Block Island. So more people thought that the project was consistent with the landscape during the day on the island than they did at night on the island. And then there was a statistically significant difference between daytime fit between Block Island and Rhode Island. We then asked respondents to choose as many as they thought were appropriate turbine descriptions. So basically asking them to tell us, did you think the turbines were impressive? Did you think the turbines were symbolic of progress? And so on and so forth. And here I'm showing a table that is essentially broken down by the top positive and negative descriptions, and then how they break down across support and opposition. So the top positive turbine descriptions were that they are impressive and that they are symbolic of clean energy progress. And the top negative comments, or the top negative descriptions, I should say, are that they detract from the island and coastal character, and that they caused a loss of something intangible where all you can see is the ocean. And in addition to the top descriptions, we do notice that support includes some disamenities. Many supporters also indicated that there was an intangible loss and that the turbines were industrial or that they detract. So we felt like that was an important thing to add. Now I'm going to go ahead and discuss some of our regression results. These are the regression results for place consistency, and we report effect size using partial eta squared. So for Block Island, the top predictors of whether or not people thought that the project was consistent with their place meetings were landscape fit, feeling that the project fit the landscape, having a bachelor's degree, and then the top negative predictor was intangible loss, feeling that the project represented an intangible loss where all you could see is the ocean. For the Rhode Island coast, the top positive predictor was landscape fit, or I should say the only positive predictor was landscape fit, and the only negative predictor was that the turbines were unattractive. So as we can see there, there's some differences regarding whether or not we're looking at the effect on the landscape or simply a response to the appearance of the turbines. And now here I report the regression results for support. These are the logistic regression results. For Block Island, the only significant predictor was negative, and that was pristineness. And it didn't have a very large effect size, but still was the only significant variable in the model. And for Rhode Island, we actually had place consistency, concern for climate change, pristineness as a place meeting, impressive as a turbine description, symbolic of progress as a turbine description with a huge effect size, and intangible loss as a negative. We did also find it kind of interesting that pristineness is positive on the coast and a negative on Block Island. As well, pristineness is a positive on the coast, while intangible loss is a negative on the coast. So we thought those were kind of some interesting comparisons to discuss. And as I move into my actual conclusion, we do note for project support that pristineness predicts opposition on Block Island and support on Rhode Island. So that was interesting. Turbine appearance and place consistency are important on the coast. And for project support, landscape fit was not a significant predictor. Regarding place consistency, the models were dominated by landscape fit instead of many of the other variables. And when we actually constrained fit, we don't show that here, but when we actually constrained fit and removed it from the model, turbine descriptions and place meetings emerge. So turbine descriptions become much more important for the coastal respondents, while place meetings emerge as important for the islanders. When we talk about overall, what we think of our regression findings, more power would be better. This is just a case study of a single project, and of course on the island we sampled the entire population of the island, but we're only able to get so many responses, so always more would be better, and we feel like our regression results would be more powerful and more meaningful if we had more respondents. But we have found some interesting things here, and generally those are that there's a relationship between landscape effects, the turbine appearance, and project support. And so research on the relationship between place meeting and project support is seldom found in the literature, and it dovetails nicely with our unique case study for Block Island. It's a local project with some of the complexity of a large-scale offshore wind installation. And due to its being the US's first, it will stand as a proven example for better or for worse. Here, one of the more important aspects of stakeholders' concerns has been expanded in the hope that industry, policymakers, and regulators engage appropriately. That will certainly mean not only asking for feedback, which comes readily from attuned supporters and opponents, but also going further to understand that each community will have a unique understanding of its surroundings and also focus on different elements of a project as either good or bad. Failure to appreciate these nuances will more than likely be associated with delays or even failure in future projects. And on the converse, attending to them creates opportunities for learning best practices going forward. And that is generally it. Thank you. Here are my acknowledgements for the University of Delaware and the University of Rhode Island, assorted other helpers. And here are the citations for this PowerPoint presentation. So thank you.